Chiefs Kingdom, what's happening? Gary McKenzie back here again with another episode of Gridiron Lines. We'll talk a little bit about the name change if you've been paying attention. But in this video, we're going to go through Andy Reid's grade for week 2 versus the Chargers. I'm excited to show you how Andy Reid did in week 2. Let's get it. Okay, this week's fan shout out goes to Dale Brotherton, and he really saved me here. Last week, I mentioned that we were going to call this show Between the Lines. And he mentioned that he has bad memories for him personally with that show name due to Kevin Keatsman's show Between the Lines that used to be on 810 Radio. I got to thinking, and I remembered, I didn't much care for a lot of the things that were said on that show either, and I didn't want to be associated with it. I had completely forgotten about the name, so I changed gears. It's never too late to change your opinion on something, and I definitely changed my opinion here thanks to Dale Brotherton. Really appreciate your comment because it saved me uh, some trouble going down the road. And we're going to instead call the show Gridiron Lines, which I like so much better. And it's not associated with, you know, Keatsman's former show. So appreciate you, Dale. Like always, thank you to everyone who comments, likes, and shares and subscribes. It does us a big favor. It helps the algorithm get this content to other Chiefs fans. So, without any further ado, let's get going on our content for the video. Before we jump into the grave for Andy Reid, I'm going to take some time to talk about a player who I thought was really important for the Chiefs win last Thursday night. And there's three players here. You see Wiley, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Jerick McKinnon. And the player of these three that I think played a huge role in the Chiefs win is Jet McKinnon. And the reason I say that is because in the first quarter, the Chiefs were taking an approach where they weren't leaving an extra blocker to help with Mahomes and the pass rush that the Chargers were putting out there. And you saw the Chiefs had some problems protecting Mahomes when the game first started. Next thing you know, the Chiefs are making some adjustments, and McKinnon's in the backfield blocking. And he did a lot of things in that game, picking up the extra pass rush that helped Mahomes get just that little bit more time to complete some passes. And he is definitely an unsung hero in that game because if you go back and watch it, you'll notice countless plays where McKinnon was just doing an outstanding job blocking the additional rusher or the rusher that got through. And I don't think the Chiefs have as good of an outcome last Thursday night against the Chargers if McKinnon wasn't there to pick those up. So he's definitely an unsung hero in that game. And I think he had a huge part in the Chiefs' offensive success that got them the win. So hats off to McKinnon. He did a great job picking up the rush and really helped the Chiefs win that game. So now let's get to our four keys that we're looking at to evaluate Andy Reid. So as you know, last week we gave Andy Reid a grade of A for his efforts against the against the Cardinals, and this week, I guess technically last Thursday, um, we're looking at Andy Reid's grade for his performance against the LA Chargers. The four areas we're looking at are team preparedness, which is worth 20 points, key decisions, which is worth 30 points, play calling, which is worth 30 points, and then the game outcome, which is worth 20 points. And you may be wondering, well, what authority do I have to be grading these things? I don't have any authority to be grading Andy Reid. He's a brilliant play caller, one of the greatest head coaches to ever coach in the NFL. And I'll never be able to have anywhere near the football mind that he has. But I do have experience teaching and grading and evaluating. I teach at the University of Missouri in the computer science department. And I mentioned this last week, but it's just kind of where I've got this from. So I have experience building rubrics and all that good stuff. And I won't bore you with all that. So let's get into my thoughts on the game, especially how it relates to Andy Reid's job as head coach Chargers game. So in the team preparedness section, there are several things I want to talk about. The Chiefs had a total of 6 penalties in that game for 54 yards, and 6 penalties is a pretty decent chunk of penalties. The week prior, when they played the Cardinals, they had only acquired 3 penalties, which is excellent. 6 penalties is a little more sloppier. Another thing that I didn't like in the game was that a lot of the Chiefs players on defense, there were a lot of missed tackles in that game, and they had a hard time bringing down the Chargers players when they had the ball in their hands, particularly Austin Eckler. Now, part of that is on the Chiefs, but another part of that is on Eckler just being an extremely slippery guy to get your hands on and wrap up and tackle. Willie Gay had a couple plays, one in particular where he was going to blow up a receiver in the flat and he just missed him. I think that was Eckler again. So they had some issues tackling, and they need to bunker down on that and clean it up, especially as the season goes on. They had, as far as the other penalties go, 2 of them were pass interference in the first quarter, and Fenton, he continues to be grabby. So Rashad Fenton has always had an issue with getting his hands on the receiver, maybe being a little grabby, getting a hold here or there, getting away with things. In the playoffs, sometimes they'll let that slide. But in the regular season, and particularly this season, they're looking to put an emphasis on illegal contact or on players grabbing or secondary players grabbing receivers. So Fenton is a liability as far as the defense is concerned in terms of getting a penalty here or there, a pass interference here or there. He needs to clean up his game. And this is why I think whenever McDuffie comes back, there's a good chance that your cornerbacks may be McDuffie, Watson, and Snead. Those may be the 3 guys that the Chiefs end up using in the secondary, with Fenton coming in spot duty. So he really needs to improve on how handsy he is in the secondary, but he's been doing it for so long. I don't know if that's ever going to change. So that was a problem in the game, those pass interferences. Also, a problem in the game with the team preparedness was that there were miscommunications among the offensive line, not picking up the blitzes in the first quarter, at times seeming to be a little overwhelmed with what the Chargers were doing. Drew Tranquil was able to get through completely, not picked up by either Trey Smith or Creed Humphrey. I don't know which one it was. I don't think they knew which one had Tranquil either. And he was able to get through and get a quick sack on Mahomes. The offensive line also had a couple holding penalties through the game, and that was indicative of um, a group that was getting beat. So the Chargers front seven, if we had any question on whether or not the Chiefs offensive line would be able to handle it, we know that answer now. And we also have the question answered of how good the Chargers defensive front is. It's very good. Khalil Mack caused a lot of problems throughout the game. Bosa caused a lot of problems. They are the real deal, and I expect them to continue to cause problems for other teams in the NFL. And the Chiefs are just trying to grab on for dear life a couple times, and they ended up getting holding penalties called. A couple other penalties were from Brian Cook on special teams, not making heads up plays. He ended up getting in a bit of a scuffle with one of the Chargers players after a special teams play, and he ended up shoving that player in the helmet with his right hand or giving him a little slap. And the refs saw it, and I've always heard that it's the second guy that gets caught, and he was kind of the second guy in that situation. There was a little shoving going on, and he retaliated, and he got the flag thrown on him. The other one was he was blocking a player too far out of bounds on a punt, and you can't shove a guy out of bounds and continue to shove him out there. You've got to allow them the ability to come back in bounds, and he didn't do that. So he had another uh, personal foul called based on that. On a short week, and the Chiefs did do some good things though, and this is where I'll go from being a pest or not maybe. This is where I'll go from the negative aspect of the game to the positive. And in this Thursday night game on short rest, the Chiefs players appeared to be very well conditioned. I didn't see a lot of players grabbing their knees, asking to be taken out of the game. The team as a whole looked like they were ready physically to perform. Their issues were more or less mental. And so we all know the play that was the difference in the game. uh, the Chargers tight end, Everett, was gasping for air. He also says that he had a bit of an ankle problem at that time. And the Chargers decided to run that play anyways, being completely oblivious to Everett's condition. and he just had no energy left. He was entirely gassed, but Jalen Watson wasn't. And so he was able to intercept the pass, return it for a touchdown, and that was the difference in the game. So Coach Reid did a good job getting his players prepared during the offseason and training camp and the preseason, getting them physically conditioned. Now he just needs to continue to work on a few of these mental issues that happen throughout the game. Because of all those things, I give Reid a 14 out of 20 on team preparedness. Next are the key decisions, and there's really only one play where a key decision came into effect in this game. There were no challengeable plays, and if you remember, at the start of the fourth quarter, the Chiefs had the ball on their Chargers 1 yard line on a 4th and 1 situation, and at that point in time, I believe the score was 14-17 with the Chargers leading. I could be mistaken on that, but I always ask myself on this key decision field, if the Chiefs ran a certain play 1,000 times, would it be a net positive or a net negative? And I think in this game, the decision to kick the field goal was a little too conservative for my taste. I think if the Chiefs chose to go for it on 4th and 1, if they did that 1,000 times, they would come up with a positive outcome over half of those times. However, kicking the field goal, I think there's also a little merit to that too. So maybe I'm a little biased. I want to see the Chiefs continue to go for it on 4th down, be more aggressive on 4th down. I think they'll score more points because of it. But there's a caveat to that. The Chiefs ended up winning that game by 3 points. So that field goal, that sure 3 points that Andy Reid took, did in a way win the game for them. Now, who's to say they wouldn't have picked up the touchdown and won the game by 7 points instead of 3? Who knows? But Andy Reid went the conservative route, and I think he went that route because the defense at that time in the game was doing a really good job of stopping the Chargers' attack on offense. And my hat goes off to the defense in that game, especially through the third quarter. They did a great job of keeping the Chargers' offense at bay and coming up with several stops. So Andy Reid was probably feeling that during the course of the game, and he's decided to go with a more conservative call on that 4th down. However, I would have liked to have seen them go for it in that case. I want them to be a little more aggressive on 4th down than they were last year. And because of that, I gave them a 25 out of 30 on the key decisions. Next up is the play calling. So throughout the game, I had some issues with the play calls that were made. One of them was in the first drive to start the game. Andy Reid on 3rd down, 3rd and short, he chose to hand the ball off to McCole Hardman on a sweep to the short side of the field, and it killed the drive. He ended up getting stopped for a 4 or 5 yard loss, and the Chiefs ended up having to punt the ball. If the Chiefs get the ball first in a game, they need to be establishing themselves with a lead. And I've seen Coach Reid call this play several times and have it fail several times. I don't like running the ball on the outside on 3rd and short. If they're going to do something, maybe try a little trickery with the play action or run it up the middle. Because if you run it up the middle, at worst, or likely at worst, you might lose a yard and it's still 4th and short. Or you end up getting the 1st down. So I don't like the kind of cute little runs on the outside whenever you're trying to get a 3rd and short situation converted. And it didn't work in that case. And we've seen it many times in the past where those plays don't work. Maybe one of these times it's panned out, but I didn't like that play call. There's also a screen pass in the first quarter that went to McKinnon. I believe it was on a 3rd and long, and everyone in the building knew it was coming. The Chargers had sniffed it out almost even before the play was ran. So I do like Coach Reid's use of the screen game, but in this place, it was a little too choreographed. It was too planned out, and the Chargers defense was able to pick it up. Next was a shovel pass to Kelsey on 3rd and goal at the end of the third. And the shovel pass it kind of reminds me of like a delicacy. If you have it every once in a while, it can be a really good thing. But if you run it too much, teams are going to get it sniffed out. And the Chargers, there's another play where that was another play where the Chargers defense just really knew what the Chiefs were going to do before they did it. So the creativity wasn't quite there because the Chiefs continued to try to run that play, and it was another bad play call from Reid that failed. And I also want to talk about the first 15 plays of the game. So everyone knows, or at least most of us know, that Coach Reid likes to script 15 plays at the start of the game. And those first 15 plays of the game for the Chiefs didn't get much accomplished. And I think the reason they didn't get much accomplished was because Coach Reid underestimated the Chargers' front seven. He overestimated the Chiefs' ability to stop the Chargers' front seven from being able to get in the backfield of the Chiefs and cause problems, especially in the passing game. And because of that miscalculation, the Chiefs' offense wasn't able to score the ball within their first 15 plays of the first couple of drives. They started off the game slow. And we've seen the Mahomes and Chiefs come back so many times, but you don't want to get into the game early on going in a deficit like that. So the first 15 plays that Coach Reid had scripted up prior to the game were not successful. And because of that, and those other points with those interesting play calls that had a failed outcome, I give Coach Reid a 20 out of 30 on the play calling grade. Lastly is the outcome. So Chargers, at least from everything we've heard up to the season and kind of the eye test, they look like a very good team. They look like a team that should make the playoffs. They've got an outstanding quarterback. Their defense is much improved with key additions that they brought on during the offseason. This was a divisional opponent. Division games are never easy. And so Coach Reid and the Chiefs team did a good job winning this game. Honestly speaking, any AFC West game is going to be a dogfight. It's going to be rough. We knew what we were getting into before the game started. So it's good to see the Chiefs come out with a win and start the season off as far as their divisional opponents go. And because of that, I gave the Chiefs 19 out of 20 on the outcome of the game. So overall, Coach Reid scored a 79 out of 100 by my metrics in the game, which nodded him a C+. And I think that goes along well with the way most of us felt about the game. It's that the Chiefs didn't play their best game. Coach Reid didn't come forward. Coach Reid didn't put his best product on the field in week 2 versus the Chargers on Thursday night. And this gives me so much optimism for the Chiefs team because they still won the game. And at one point in time, they were up, I think, by 2 scores, and the Chargers were able to score late to make it even closer. So, ladies and gents, the Chiefs team, at least from what we're seeing so far this season, is locked and loaded, ready to go. They're having a strong start to the season. And so the team having an off game and still winning in somewhat convincing fashion is very impressive. And with that ends our grading. He got a C+, at least according to me. So where do you think I went wrong? Do you think it's too harsh? Do you think he should have done better? Do you think he should have done worse? Make sure you mention it in the comments. We'll continue this series next week when the Chiefs take on the Colts, and we'll give Andy Reid a grade for that game as well. With that, I don't have much more to add other than make sure, once again, to like and subscribe. Tell everyone you know about it. In fact, you could even take out a billboard and say you should be watching RGR football on that billboard if you want to. I won't complain. But yeah, thank you for liking and subscribing. Make sure you tell your friends and comment if you want to. With that, I appreciate y'all. And this is Gary signing out. Catch you later.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.